How is it going, my love? Today's video is going to be all about my personal experience with somatic healing. I'm really excited to talk about this topic today because this is something I've been practicing behind the scenes for the past 4 years, and it has deeply impacted my life. In fact, many of you who have been here for years and years and years on my channel, tuning into my videos, have been commenting and messaging me, sharing that you noticed a distinct difference in the way that I hold myself, in the way that I show up online, in the way that I talk, the feeling that you get from my presence. I attribute pretty much all of this to my experience with somatic healing. First and foremost, I want to emphasize the incredible difference between talk therapy, traditional talk therapy, and somatic healing, or somatic experiencing specifically, which was founded by Peter Levine. The difference here is that most of the time in traditional talk therapy, we would be talking about a situation that happened in the past and referencing that, like how it made us feel in the past, but not necessarily connecting to what's happening in the now. Or even if we were connecting to what's happening in the now, we would be talking about it, referencing it from our mind. Silo, come on, mister. The big difference with that and somatic experiencing is in somatic experiencing, you're going directly to the felt sense, the energy, the emotion within your body, within your soma at that point in time. Like I said, I've been practicing this for 4 years now, and I originally learned about this and got into this realm of healing, into this modality through a mentor of mine. Essentially, what happens when we're younger, if we experience stress and we have a need that's not fulfilled, we'll have an emotional experience, an emotional reaction in that moment. It's a stress response. If we are not met, what happens is we'll go into a state of survival. We'll do what we need to do to direct ourselves away from that experience. So I'm not going to get into all of that. We can talk about survival patterns all day long and exactly how we develop these survival patterns that carry on throughout the rest of our life as far as our modality, our way of coping with stressful moments. But that aside, what happens is there's an emotional response that comes up, and if it's not met with what's needed, it gets stuck within our body. And so that's why somatic healing is so powerful, because essentially what we're doing, or this is how it went for me, I would go into a session and I would start talking about content. That's what I call talking about things that are happening in my life. And I could carry on the entire session just talking about it, but what somatic healing is all about is noticing what comes up, what arises in the body as I'm talking about and referencing certain things that happened in the past. So these could be things that happened way, way, way long ago when I was a little one and somehow I remember, or these could be patterns that are happening in my life now that are very familiar and that are actually reenactments of that original wounding. I hope this is all making sense. So basically talking about the things, and then the practitioner that I'm working with will direct my awareness into, hey, what's happening in your body as you talk about this? So I'll take a pause from my mind and talking about it and directing my awareness away from what's here, and I'll bring my awareness towards any part of my body that I notice there's some sort of a feeling, there's a sensation. And then there's also breathing involved, like really relaxing the mind and dropping the awareness into the felt sense. And then what happens is I begin co-regulating with my practitioner. So this practitioner has a regulated nervous system. They're deeply relaxed in rest or digest mode. And so if there's a fight, flight, or freeze that comes up in my system, being in the presence of another human being who is essentially modeling that healthy caregiver who wasn't there in the past but is now there now, my parts that come up, my emotions that come up, the somatic experience is with another present regulated being and is getting to have the need met of someone who's there and present and loving and accepting. So then what happens in time, and it can be a few moments depending on how much I'm resisting it or how much I'm bouncing back up into my mind or how much protectors are coming up and directing me away from that direct experience, then it may take a little longer. But as time has gone on, I've been able to practice keeping my awareness with the direct experience, with the direct sensation, not needing to know exactly what it means, but just being with that sensation in the presence of a being who is more regulated. Another thing that has happened here in my experience, and I use the terminology resource, so somebody who has a more regulated, grounded nervous system, they have more resource in that moment. And so it's sort of like I'm borrowing the resource that they have to start regulating my own nervous system, to start digesting and metabolizing the emotions and that experience that was there a long, long, long time ago, and now it's coming up again. I'm having the ability to now metabolize it and break it apart, and it starts to process, and then that allows more access to life force energy. So all of the energy that it was taking to keep that bound inside of my body, now as it breaks apart, there's more liberated energy, which can lead to realizations. Like all of a sudden I can have a knowing of like, oh yeah, now I know exactly what to do with the situation that I was talking about once that was processed. Or it can just lead to so many different things. Like I feel incredibly relaxed and actually resting in my body. I'll start to experience more well-being, so more warmth and more bliss versus this tight bound survival pattern. And so what has happened for me over time with this process, with somatic healing on a weekly basis, with the support of a practitioner who has a regulated nervous system and is there to guide me through every step of the way, keep bringing my awareness back to the sensation, out of the mind into the body, out of the mind into loving awareness, and then also practicing self-regulating. So noticing, oh, there's a sensation in my body. I'm not with my practitioner in this moment. I'm not with another person with a regulated nervous system. I'm on my own. And can I connect to the resource of the divine? Can I feel the support that exists surrounding me in this moment, in every moment, as I notice the sensation? And so there can be a self-to-self, self-regulation practice as well that I've also been doing over the years. What has happened with this practice of somatic healing as opposed to staying in the mind, talking about it, venting about it, trying to figure it out, trying to make sense of it, trying to understand it, trying to get to the solution? That felt like a cycle, a lot of looping taking place, and it wasn't actually metabolizing any of the trauma or emotion that was stuck in the body. But what has happened through somatic healing, I have over time stabilized this new baseline within myself. Through those consistent sessions and practices, my nervous system's baseline is much more regulated than it used to be. So I want to speak to this a little bit because these have been profound shifts and has made such a difference in the way that I interact with life. I remember when I first started doing this healing work, I was living in a home in a very similar place to my current home. There's a train that goes by all the time, and every single time this train would go by, I would feel like I was in shock. I was in fight or flight from hearing that and feeling the vibration. It was startling to my system. Same thing with like being in public places or being in my house and hearing a lot of commotion going on the street. There was like a lot of kids playing outside, which in theory, my mind would think like, oh, this is beautiful, kids are playing. But my body felt like there was too much stimulation. And so what's happened over time is my capacity to be with life experiences has become so much more like that. I feel more rested and regulated and this stability within me. There are ebbs and flows, highs and lows of life, and my baseline for how I can show up and navigate that and how I feel within myself is so much more calm, so much more relaxed, so much more stable. This impacts my relationships, other people's emotions and states of being. I used to get swayed into it and impacted by it so much more, and now my ability to hold space is so much deeper that it's more of this stable, loving witness versus me being in my patterns, other people being in patterns, and it all going, there's just so much happening, all reactionary and very challenging to go through life in that way. And so this work has been profound for me, and it's a journey that I am continuing on because I notice the felt sense of the benefits that I've experienced. It's also such a relief to not need to figure everything out from the mind, to not need to make sense of everything. And sometimes that still comes in sessions. I'm like, oh, what does this mean? And then it's no, right back to the direct experience, right back to what's here in the body in the present moment. It's a continual practice, and it's been such a beautiful journey. So I'm just so grateful to be able to share all of this with you. Another element of this, I think I referenced earlier in the video, is about survival patterns. What happens when we don't do this somatic work? Often the reality is that most people are still operating in a survival pattern that they developed when they were younger to be able to cope with the stress of not having their need met or going through hardship. It's the tucking down of that direct experience to literally be able to survive. And these survival strategies are ultimately a gift. They helped us get through really challenging times. And as we grow up and we have new experiences, we don't need to be operating fully in those survival patterns in the way that we once did. It's like getting the mind and body to understand there's safety now. Now we can have our needs fulfilled, and it doesn't have to be the way that it was, like really getting those messages through. But if those messages don't get through, most people are operating in survival patterns, literally fight or flight mode, not resting, not relaxing. The crazy thing is sometimes people don't even know it. Through the survival patterns, we're viewing life through a certain lens, and it seems like it's reality, but we're actually wearing this mask and this configuration in our body, the way that our energy needed to structure in order to protect ourselves from things that happened in the past, and we think it's normal. We're not even aware of it until we start to experience more of that regulation, more of that relaxation, more of that resource, more presence, ultimately safety and presence. And so I'm incredibly passionate about this topic, about this work. In case you haven't noticed yet, I'm going to be hosting a free workshop all about survival patterns. I've been studying this for years, and I'm really excited to dive deeper with you. If you're interested in learning more about this work and what patterns are, how they distort our view of reality, and what your patterns might be, what people in your life, what their patterns might be, and how to best support yourself and others in this journey of healing to come back to a place of presence and regulation. If you're interested in that, I'm going to share some info about this free workshop down below. This workshop is going to be on February 3rd, and you'll see all of the info and the link in the video description. I'm so excited to dive deeper with you and to bring you on this journey with me. Thank you so much for being here. I love you, and I'll talk to you soon. Mwah!